Welcome back to Spincast, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Keegan, or Keegabyte on the internet. I am joined today by Caleb Gardner and Alton Foster from University of Tulsa Esports. How are you guys doing today?
Doing wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well, good to hear. I'm doing well myself as well. So first of all, let's start off. I want you guys to introduce yourselves a little bit further and just tell me, we can start with Caleb here. How did you get into esports as a passion, and how did you get into wanting to pursue esports a little bit more fully into your collegiate career?
Yeah, thanks, Keegan. So freshman year of high school, got into this source mod game called Fistful of Frags. Kind of similar to CSGO, but just Western. And me and my buddies joined in a competitive league, and just the amount of enjoyment and fun I had there in like an actual competitive league where, you know, the standings, the brackets, and you can win it all. I just enjoyed it so much more than just playing anything casually, deathmatch or matchmaking. And so that was so much better for me that I decided I want to pursue that later. So when Tulsa had an esports program, I definitely wanted to stay engaged with that and wanted to keep my ear to the ground. And once we finally got a varsity program, I was all in. Started with the CSGO program here this last school year. I'm currently captaining the CSGO team. And we've taken some victories, and it's been a really great year to start the program off on. And I'm really looking forward to the potential all the guys have. And building our program and building our practice schedule and doing all those things in order to be, one of the best CSGO teams in the region. So really looking forward to making that happen.
Well, awesome. How about you, Alton? How did you get into since you're the program coordinator for the esports program at Tulsa, you might have a little bit of different experience. So how did you get into esports?
Yeah, so I came from more of a game design background and a little bit more of I have some experience in the industry working for a company called Esports Arena. And so that kind of led into some of the skills that they were looking for to run this program. So I've been playing rhythm games, at least semi-competitively, for a number of years. But I really enjoy being able to enable others to compete. And I really enjoy bringing out the talent in other people.
Well, that is good to hear as well, because it doesn't really matter what background you come from. That's a great thing about esports is we can touch so many different areas of just the game industry that you don't really have to come from any one background, whether it be competition, production, or design. You happen to come from the design side, and that's really fantastic because it gives you a different view on esports and the industry as a whole that others might not see. So that is actually really fantastic from your side. So let's talk a little bit about how your program works at the school. There's a ton of concern out there about how exactly student athletes in esports manage their work-life schedule. So tell me about basically what happens in the day of one of your esports athletes. Is it a typical wake up, go to school, go to practice, study, go to bed type thing, or is there a little bit more variation in there?
So we have a practice room that the students who are on teams can use when they are scheduled to do it. And usually, depending on the team, they're scheduled between 1 to 3 days a week in the practice room. But they also usually are practicing either alone or with their team for a number of hours outside of the practice room on their own. Now, that's not possible for some of the teams. For instance, the Call of Duty team has to play on PS4s, and not all of the team members have PS4s of their own. So they are scheduled a little bit more in the practice room since they require the equipment that we have. But so it's some together, and we really value the actual teamwork and scheduled and structured practice. But there's also, as all the different players are passionate about their individual game, they play it on their own just, for fun.
Mm-hmm. And from a player side, Caleb, how do you typically go about your day?
Yeah, our practice sessions usually end up being in the evening to late evenings, and so it'll be a full day of school. I mean, being a primarily very heavy on STEM school, a lot of us have really challenging and demanding work school schedules. Also have a part-time job, so just fitting all of that in the beginning of the day up till the late evening practice times is really a challenge. But I feel like it's very rewarding to be able to have that full day, but also get that team experience and the rewarding practice as well as just fun of playing the game at night. So it's both every day, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. So you guys are a varsity program, right?
Yes, we
At
are.
Yeah, we
Tulsa.
are.
Yeah. So there's also been, in addition to the practice and healthy work-life schedule, there's also been a lot of talk about how you can keep your students healthy, just bodily healthy as well. And a lot of schools have access to potentially trainers, dietitians, um, mental health mental health access. So how exactly do you assist your students with that?
We really enjoy having like seminars and things from people who are professionals in the industry. So, for example, just this last semester, we had the psychologist from Complexity Gaming come and give a talk to us, and we had all of our people attend, and they really enjoyed it. In fact, he went quite a bit over time, and everybody was still engaged and would have been happy to sit there longer if he had more time to talk. So it's it's something that everybody here values a lot. And so we also have the practice room right next to the cafeteria so that we can get good, nutrition and stuff for whoever, you can go and get food and come back. We don't want people skipping meals for practicing and stuff like that. So we try to give easy access to everything that the players need.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this is also in like going to be our second or third phases of our esports program of bringing in these people from our traditional sports side of things at Tulsa. We're hoping to get a lot more involvement directly with the university's athletic programs, which is going to involve including their um, mental coaches, their physical trainers, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, for my guys, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this program live, but for CSGO, I'm looking to get some like required gym hours in, so we can be a pretty swole team. Looking forward to it.
And I assume you guys would have GPA requirements as well. Do you have a study hour requirement, or is it just like a GPA requirement?
Yeah,
GPA.
we're going to be, GPA. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of different ways of doing that. Some schools are kind of like, let students do what they want to do on their own. As long as they keep it up, they don't care. Some are like, you have to get in 10 hours a week at the library or something of that nature. We've seen a lot of different ways that schools tackle it. And there's not really one way that's more effective than the others from what we've seen. I mean, there are positives and negatives to both, but as long as you have that GPA requirement, that's what really needs to happen. Because I can imagine that when you guys were a club, Caleb, you told me that before the podcast, that you guys used to be a club. I can imagine that when you were a club, that was extraordinarily hard to deal with.
Yeah, there's no ability to enforce when you're in club, right? So if people want to spend their entire lives playing video games, sure, they're free to do that when you're in a club setting. But when you're in a varsity setting, it's that next level of competition that involves being both competitive in school and in your game.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline is an extremely important part of sports as well as school. So it's very important that the athletes can also be disciplined in their education. And that shows a degree of discipline that they can then also show in their play.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on here. And I want to hear a little bit about how you guys compete. So there are a ton of different ways for colleges to compete anymore. You got the more organized fashions like NACE, TESPA, Collegiate Star, the list goes on and on and on. And then you also have your specific game leagues like Collegiate League of Legends, Collegiate R6, Collegiate COD, Collegiate Halo. Again, the list goes on and on and on. So tell me a little bit about your teams and how exactly they compete and who they compete with.
Well, I'll field CSGO first. This last year, we were playing in the Collegiate Star League for a regular season. And then the NACCS, North American Collegiate Counter-Strike League, started up. We didn't get involved with that at the time, but we're definitely looking to transition to that league in the future. Seems to be a very well-run organization with not having a lot of the issues that we found in the Collegiate Star League. After the season was over this spring, we played in the Reload Collegiate University Invitational for CSGO, hosted by the Esports Stadium and Arlington. So it was a really fun tournament. Unfortunately, it couldn't be a LAN tournament because of COVID, but we were able to have that online and still have a pretty epic turnout, over 30 teams, and we had we had a good time and some wins. So that was great thing to achieve, and actually just get invited to as a first year program. Being invited to
Yeah.
one of the biggest tournaments in the Eastern region, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of different teams that are competing in various leagues. We're not involved with anything like any large league that encompasses everything. We pretty much have all our teams compete individually in things that we have, people in Collegiate R6, in the College COD League, in a bunch of other different, leagues like that. So it's mostly individual leagues.
Okay. And again, positives, negatives to both. I actually know some of the guys over at CR6 and at Collegiate COD, to be honest, because that's where I cut my teeth, actually, in Collegiate PUBG, over the XPR side of things. Yeah. And that brings me to a really great question, and this is something that we ask most of our universities, and you're going to know exactly what I mean when I say 4 letters: NCAA. So there's been a lot of talk about the NCAA getting involved in esports. Now, do you think that there needs to be a more governing body behind esports, like the NCAA or potentially NACE, because they're already really on the way to doing that, as well as Collegiate Star and TESPA? Or do you think that it's just fine as is, having basically game specific leagues and then not really worrying about the inter-game thing? Or do you think it needs to be conferences, or does it fall somewhere in between?
There are definitely positives and negatives to both. I personally am a little bit skeptical of joining something with the NCAA right away. It could help a lot of smaller universities get their programs off the ground, having more support for that. And I'm all for being able to have more programs at a wider range of universities so that more students can get involved in esports and have careers in esports. However, as a program that we are, establishing, we also feel that that's a little bit restrictive in how we can govern it, and having more restrictions can also limit the growth and how we see fit to do it. We'd like to have a program that encompasses not just the playing aspects, but also all interdisciplinary careers in esports. From casting, we have a guy who's actually started casting with us at the beginning of last semester and has now moved on and is professionally casting by himself. And so we want to foster those careers outside of just playing. And I'm not sure that, a league like that would be the best setting for that.
It could be helpful for players. I agree with Alden about maybe not being the most engaging environment for some of our people that we're trying to integrate into being our own broadcast talent, because they would probably bring in, NCAA talent. But I mean, who knows, like if one of our guys was able to get plugged in and start becoming an NCAA caster, like think of the career opportunities. Because I know the Plugged In podcast, a lot of it is about, where can you go after college or after high school? And NCAA, that's a long-term career. You start as a player, you start as a caster, you move up into actually being hired by them. You stay with them for 10 years, you get a lot of success. I definitely see a great pipeline there that I don't see at all with all these individual leagues. They just hire freelance casters. They have management that may or may not be great. I mean, it's kind of a mixed match. It's like a grab bag of goods and bads. But with NCAA, like, what you're getting, and it's a very established package. And I think that would be really useful to esports, because right now there's so much variability between programs and different TOs running different tournaments that you might not know what you're going to get, or you might not like what you end up getting. But some sort of established package where you can be like, okay, let's do that, and I know what we're going to get, and I know that I can succeed there for years to come if I want to pursue that path, and if I can prove myself to be some of the best. I really like the idea of that, as well as I really like the idea of, if it's NCAA, the respect that esports will begin to get. It'll fight that stigmatism, because right now nobody knows, CR6. Like, that means nothing to a lot of people, right? But the NCAA means something to millions, literally millions of Americans. So having that title on us would bring us a lot of respect and a lot of exposure that we're not otherwise getting. So I do look forward to that, and I do look forward to the resources that might bring, like we talked about earlier, with coaches, athletic trainers, things like that.
Mhm. And you bring up an excellent point that a lot of schools don't really touch on, is that the NCAA could be that route for career building for various student athletes that look to potentially take a career in esports forward beyond their playing days. Because let's face it, right now in esports, it seems like that golden window for competition is like 16 to 25, and then after that, uh, most people would be like, "Oh, your reaction time is too slow." Not true, by the way. Look it up. But they'll start saying your reaction time is too slow. We don't want you anymore. Or by then they'll be looking at other things anyway. But being able to extend that passion in esports, that career in esports, is something that the NCAA could be really, really good for, as well as, Caleb, like you said, being able to give that extra support to the students and universities and have less diversity with the different policies that the TOs offer. Now, since you touched on it, Alden, you guys you do have some opportunities for students to get experience in terms of the production side of esports with casting and the other behind the scenes aspects. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so with the launch of the varsity esports program, we then also launched a Twitch stream we have a setup, a full studio that we are working on expanding and getting more equipment. But we have been able to do that for so far the spring semester and a little bit in the fall semester. And we've had, like I said, we've had a whole team of casters, one of which who has gone on to become a professional caster. I mean, somewhat he does his own streams and he freelances for a lot of leagues, especially in the Call of Duty scene. And so we also have, people doing tech and streaming and all sorts of that stuff. And we really want to grow that program and grow the production side of things, and realize that, right now we just have production and playing. I want to expand it into coaching and management and all of these things, and actually have a more career focused, program, as well as the actual esports playing.
Tangentially to that, I think we're also looking at involving a lot more content creation. So maybe that's going to be streamers doing just funny games, or maybe the games that they're good at, but maybe they're not on and actually in the varsity programs. So streamers, a YouTube channel, things like that, well moderated, like Instagram channels, are all things that we're looking to move into. So those are got to be other backbones to our program that are in their next coming phases.
Okay, well, it's really great that you're adding in that sort of back support for esports, because like I already said, playing days, they're limited. But just like anywhere else, there's a career beyond that involving what you love in esports as well, especially when you get into that casting and production side of things. That's really fantastic that you guys are offering that, because that gives a more well-rounded esports experience, because there are a ton of other things besides playing that could leave people just as fulfilled with their esports experience. I'm one of those people.
Yeah, especially in a university setting. I mean, we're really taking advantage of what we have. You have all these different majors that have all these different skill sets, and why not put that to use? I think the university is one of the best places to have an esports program, because you have, your marketing majors, you have your business majors, you have, there's STEM people that might just be playing the games. I don't want to generalize, but you have all these different people with these different great skills. We're putting them to use in all the different places that esports needs, because it's really not just playing. I mean, we've talked about that a lot, but we're going to keep coming back around to that as esports becomes destigmatized. Is what aspects of a traditional esports program are going to include traditional sports aspects, and that's going to be most of it. It's going to be the marketing, it's going to be the business side, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how we can destigmatize through those things.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, we are almost out of time here, but I have one last question for you. If you were to give advice to a middle or high schooler coming up, and they're really passionate about esports, and they want to take this a little bit further in their life, potentially look for a career in it, what would you suggest would be their next steps? And in addition to that, what would you suggest them to do to defend that opinion and desire against the people who would otherwise stigmatize it and put them down?
I would say to expand your horizons and realize that playing is not the only option. You can be involved in gaming and esports in many more ways than just being a professional player or even a content creator. A lot of people aspire to be YouTubers, streamers, or the face in front of the camera. And I think that there's much more opportunity behind the camera that can be just as fulfilling or more fulfilling as being an actual player.
Yeah, one thing I thought was extremely interesting was that the sports psychologist for Complexity Gaming that gave that lecture for us this last year, he was a Tulsa grad back in, I think he graduated somewhere between 00 and 10. And he ended up at a Complexity. And so that was before we had an esports program, obviously. But that just goes to show that even a traditional major at any university, some high school students are aspiring to attend, has a potential connection back to esports. So if that's their passion, if esports is their passion, they only have to be creative. They only have to think about, how can I make this happen for me? How can I plug into some sort of program? Do I want to be a psychologist? Do I want to be a coach? I mean, some of the best CSGO teams in the world are hiring and are becoming the best because of this, are hiring athletic trainers, are hiring mental coaches, and they're taking that to the next level, training extremely hard in those disciplines as well as the game. It's 10, 12 hours a day on all these different disciplines. And so it's obviously multidisciplinary, which means there's obviously that much more potential. Like Alden was saying, there are many more places to be successful in esports than behind a keyboard. So if you want to be the greatest player of all time, obviously I would say grind. Obviously I would say, if you're looking to attend a specific university, make sure they have an esports program, because that's going to be a huge part of your development in that career. Obviously there are lots of online ways to, become the next pro, joining some sort of online league like MDL or ESCA. I mean, those are the best ways to do that for CSGO. So you could do that without a university helping you, but it's just going to be that much more engaging and better for you as a student if you do that in conjunction with your university.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd recommend knowing that your university has an esports program, and if possible, finding one with scholarship programs.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, thank you very much for coming out today. Tell us and our audience where we can find you.
We have a Tulsa Esports Twitter. I think Alden's frozen up on us, so if you unfreeze Alden, feel free to jump in. But we are Tulsa Esports on Twitter.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for coming out today, and thank you all very much for coming out and watching Spincast again. Just remember, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay plugged in.